Hello, welcome to the live. So I'm just transferring some plants into larger pots. I have some tomato plants right here that I need to be in these larger pots, but if you guys have any indoor gardening questions, I can answer them. This is my first time ever going live, so I might not know how it works, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so the tomato plants are going to be needing support. So I do have these little trellises, but I don't know if you guys watch my videos. I grow a lot of things in leca, which trellises are not very stable in the leca. So I'm actually going to attach this to the pot. All of my pots already have like little holes drilled in here, but that'll just help keep it in place. Okay, so to attach the trellis to the pot, I already have the holes, but I have this stuff. I don't really know what you call it, but it's kind of like the stuff that keeps your bags of bread closed, I guess. And I just put it through the holes. Like that. And then twist it on here. And I also don't want it to stick out, so I'm going to put tape on here to hold it down. Okay, so it looks like that. Oh, I'm doing an indoor vegetable garden. My plants are dying and have spots of some of them. So your plants can have spots on them for a lot of different reasons. It could have some sort of a disease. There could be a pest issue. So I had a lot of plants that had spots on them, on the leaves, and the leaves were just dropping off. And it took me quite a while to realize that I had spider mites. So spider mites will chew on your leaves and put little spots on them. So I mean, there can be a lot of different reasons why your leaves have spots on them. I mean, it's hard to say why the plants are dying because I don't know the situation there or the conditions. It could be just a nutrient deficiency. I mean, it could be a lighting issue. The pots might not be big enough. There's so many different reasons why plants might be dying. Okay, so now we need to finish attaching this so we can transfer that plant in here. Okay, trellis is attached. So these pots, they're self-watering. I do have the water level indicators that I need to put in here. And then we're going to transfer, well, I have 2 tomato plants, but transfer this one. There are quite a bit of roots in here, but I should be able to get this out pretty easily. And it's also okay if some of the roots break off, it'll be totally fine. But I'm not really a fan of touching all of this stuff, so I always wear black gloves. You might see these in my videos sometimes. Usually it's only when I'm dealing with dirt, but sometimes it gets a lot of gross residue on it when it's in here. But actually, what I'm going to do is put a little bit of leca down in here first, and then we'll put the plant in there. And actually, I'm going to cut some of these lower leaves off of here because we can plant it a little bit deeper and it'll actually just grow even more roots. So like dwarf and micro dwarf cherry tomatoes are probably one of my favorites to grow indoors because these little flowers right here are all going to turn into tomatoes. And as you can see, the plant is so short. This is probably about 8 inches tall, but pretty soon it's going to have a lot of cherry tomatoes on here. So definitely one of my favorites to grow indoors. Oh, this is really stuck in here. So if I loosen it up like this, it should be a little bit easier to pop out. I need a tray of some sort. And then I'm just going to leave all of this leca on here. Do you have to hand pollinate when it is grown indoors? So for tomatoes, so yeah, all the flowering and fruiting plants, you do have to hand pollinate. There are some that I've noticed you really don't have to do anything with. So tomatoes indoors, I've noticed that I don't really have to hand pollinate them too much. The most I might do is just like shake the plant like this, and so I get more tomatoes when I do that, when I shake the plant, but I don't go in here with a brush and like do all that. So yes, you do have to hand pollinate. Peppers are another one that I for sure have to hand pollinate. And I use an electric toothbrush for those. Tomatoes, I can kind of be lazy and not hand pollinate them as much, and I'll still get some tomatoes, but I get more when I hand pollinate. But plants like peas, I haven't hand pollinated those at all, and I'll still get peas. I also have an eggplant plant. It's jewel amethyst eggplant. It makes eggplants that are like this big, but I've tried pollinating it and it doesn't seem like it needs to be pollinated. So it kind of depends on the plant. But yeah, you do have to hand pollinate. So the ways that I hand pollinate things that I have to hand pollinate, I either use a small makeup brush or paintbrush. You can use that too. You can use an electric toothbrush. You can use a Q-tip. You can shake the plant. Sometimes even just having a fan blowing on your plants, that'll help move the pollen around. And you also have to know what type of flowers you're dealing with. So things like tomatoes, peppers, peas, even my eggplant, those have complete flowers, which means each flower has both the male and the female parts. So basically you just have to get the pollen to the center and that's everything. But there's also plants that have separate male and female flowers. Like right now I have a watermelon plant in my room, and those basically you'll have to take pollen from the male flower and put it on the female flower. So it's a little bit more work, but it's fun. Is this a tomato plant? Yes, this one is a tomato plant. Do I live in a cold area? I live in Iowa, so right now it's been a little bit warmer out lately, but we're still kind of at risk for frost and snow. It last snowed probably like 2 weeks ago, but I do have some plants out on my balcony right now. I have basically just my frost-tolerant plants, which are different types of greens, some herbs. It looks pretty nice out there. If you guys want to see it, I can maybe show you in a little bit. How much water do you keep on the pebbles? So when using leca, I usually keep like the bottom third of the pot filled with water, or with these though, they have like the water level indicators. So there's a max line on there and I'll usually fill it up to that. Or sometimes I'll overfill it. It also depends on how many roots the plants have. So if the plant doesn't have very many roots, I might fill the water a lot higher because I want the roots to get water. But if it has a lot of roots, then I'll keep the water level pretty low. Okay, so I don't know, you guys obviously can't see in here, but this is like, yeah, that's not a good angle. I wish I could show you the tomatoes I am growing. I transferred them from the Click and Grow. I've done that too. So a lot of, even this tomato plant, this was from a hydroponic system. So for Click and Grow specifically though, I love starting plants in there, like the fruiting and flowering plants. But I eventually just transfer them out because they can get so much bigger when you give them the space and also better lighting. But I've had tomato plants and pepper plants inside of the Click and Grow that I transferred out and they got way bigger. Also pepper plants and some strawberries, I transferred them outside a couple summers ago and they got really big. So Click and Grows, I usually, for my Click and Grow, I have 2 different ones. I still use them, but I more so prefer using those for like herbs, sometimes greens, but I'll get like the peppers and tomatoes started in there. These tomato plants, they came from a hydroponic system that I was supposed to do some sponsored content for, but it didn't work out. I had some issues, but anyways, that's where these are from. So I'm not sure what type of tomatoes these are, but since they were supposed to be in a hydroponic system, I already know that they're not expected to get very big. Click and Grow is, it's not, so they do not consider their products hydroponic systems, although a lot of people usually refer to them as hydroponic systems, but it's kind of similar to that. I can just go grab one and show you. So I have 2 different Click and Grows here. So the bigger one is the Smart Garden 9, the smaller one is the Smart Garden 3, but basically, since Click and Grow does not consider these to be hydroponic systems, I just refer to them as a self-watering planter with a light. So basically you have these little capsules that the plants go into and these little wicks, and the growing medium already has all the nutrients in it, so that's one of the major differences between that and hydroponic systems, because hydroponic systems you have to add nutrients to the water. Also, hydroponic systems have a pump, which can be kind of noisy in a lot of cases. This does not have a pump at all, so it doesn't even use that much electricity, but yeah, I really like this one. This is basically just a smaller version of that. And I also have, had, the Click and Grow 25, which is really big, and that's more so just for growing greens. But when I moved, I left it at my sister's house, so she has it currently in her basement. I can go and take it whenever I want, but I don't need it. But in general, I kind of prefer using my DIY setups over any hydroponic system. I think the issue with hydroponic systems is a lot of plants are crammed so close together in them, but you can leave space in between, which is what I do. I think Click and Grow does a pretty good job about spacing the plants out a little bit more, but a lot of hydroponic systems, the plants are so close together. I'm going to try peppers from seeds. What germination method do you use? So I start seeds using different methods. I used to start seeds in like a wet paper towel quite often, but I've sort of moved away from doing that. I kind of just like to use a seed starting mix inside of a really small container. Sometimes if I'm only growing one type of plant, like I'll use a container this small, but I also have like burpee seed starting trays that I like to use too. But just like a seed starting mix, right now I have cocoa coir, I think that's how you say it, that I mixed with vermiculite. Nothing that I swear by, I just had those items already, so I've been using that to start seeds. A lot of my plants I transfer to leca if they're gonna be indoors or into a hydroponic system. So I'll kind of start them in that, wash off the roots, transfer them. But I use soil outside on my balcony, so I start them in a seed starting mix and then transfer to something else eventually once they get a little bit bigger. The thing about peppers though, when starting those from a seed, they do need warmer temperatures. So usually if the area is cold, you might need a heat mat. I don't own a heat mat, but usually like just putting it under a grow light will help. And then once it sprouts, it for sure needs a grow light. I don't think peppers need grow lights to sprout, but definitely once it sprouts, you for sure need a grow light. You're welcome. Okay, so let me just fill this. So when using leca, you're supposed to soak it in water for like 24 hours before you use it, but I pretty much never do that. On occasion I will, but I really don't do that. If anything, I'll get it wet before I use it, so that's why it's wet right now, but you don't have to soak it. But the thing I like about leca is you'll have fewer pest issues. Pest issues can happen no matter what growing medium you use, but you won't really have as many pests that you would inside of soil. I initially started using a lot of leca because fungus gnats are really irritating, but as I've shown in one of my videos, you can get fungus gnats in leca. They're just attracted to decaying matter or organic material. So the situations where I got fungus gnats in leca were where like the seed was rotting or the material that I started the plant in was kind of like that I left it intact and transferred that in there because it was something that was okay for hydroponic systems. So yeah, bugs are not impossible in leca, but I like it for indoors because I live in an apartment. So I mean, it's easier for me to store and reuse leca than getting soil and then getting it all the way up in here. I've also noticed better plant health too when I use leca. But that's all in the nutrients because leca does not have any nutrients in it at all. So you do have to add plant food. And depending on the plant type, that kind of affects what type of plant food I use. Okay, so this basically just goes inside of one of these. And now I'm just going to add water to it. We'll water with plant food. So for this one, I'm going to use AeroGarden liquid plant food. The reason why I am choosing that one for this one, because this has to go through a flower and fruit stage. And I know that AeroGarden, it'll kind of just cover all of that. So that is why I'm using that. But the other one that I like to use is Foliage Pro. It's a little bit cheaper too. So I like to use that for the plants that do not go through the flower and fruit stage. So a lot of my greens and my herbs, I will use that for that. Also, like the fruiting and flower plants, when they're younger and I'm trying to delay the flowering stage, I'll just use Foliage Pro for a while, but eventually switch. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but the little blue straw, it's all the way to the top now. Do I get gnats? Yes, I do. I think fungus gnats are definitely one of those things that you'll probably get. So I only have a handful of plants in soil. Those are just like my decorative house plants. And gnats are attracted to basically moist soil, organic matter, decaying matter, also your drains in your house. They can be hiding in there. So what I do for my plants that are in soil, I add like a top layer of aquarium gravel just to kind of cover it up. Because I mean, even right now that it's colder, I'm not really at risk for gnats right now, but as it gets warmer, I start doing more things to prevent them. So I do like to water my plants with something that has the chemical BTI in it. I don't know what that stands for, but mosquito bits. And then I also have something in my bio called fungus gnat death drops, which is just a liquid form of that, and you just add that into the water. But for mosquito bits, that's basically, I think, pieces of corn husks that are coated in that stuff. So it's cheaper than the other liquid thing that I have. But for that, you can basically make like a tea, mosquito bits tea, and soak it in hot water for a while, and then basically filter out the little bits and just have the water with that in there. So in the summer and spring, as a preventative, I always just water my plants in soil with that. And that helps a lot because, I mean, fungus gnats, they're so easy to get inside, and then they just find somewhere to lay their eggs. So, I mean, you could have just watered your plants today, and then a gnat happens to get in and finds your plant and then starts laying eggs. And I think they take about, I'm not sure how long they take to hatch, actually, but you'll have the larva moving around in the soil for a while. And the issue with the larva is it feeds on your plant roots, so that can cause damage to your plants. The adult fungus gnats don't damage your plants, but they're kind of annoying. And you can also tell which plant a gnat may have laid eggs in because they'll be really just hanging out around it. Like along the main stem, you might see a lot of them on there. On the surface of the growing medium, they'll be crawling around. But I mean, even if you find them only in one plant, you probably just want to treat all of your plants as a preventative. But in hydroponic systems and semi-hydroponics like leca, I see a lot of people saying that you don't get pest issues or you don't get gnats when using hydroponic systems. Even companies that sell hydroponic systems, that's one of their like marketing things, but it's not true. I've had pest issues in most of my hydroponic systems, actually. Fungus gnats for sure. Actually, fungus gnats I've only had in one hydroponic system. It's a system that I haven't even shown on my page, but I've had it for like a year. But I've had spider mites on multiple hydroponic systems. Spider mites are an absolute nightmare. Like, they are so hard to get rid of. You pretty much have to throw all your plants away because I've been dealing with them since November, and whenever I think they're gone, I find them again. Like, I recently thought they were gone, and then I found them on a hydroponic system. And luckily that hydroponic system only had one plant in it, so I just threw it away and cleaned the parts. The little table that it was on, it's all sitting on my apartment balcony right now because I don't even want it in here. Spider mites are what kills your rose. Yeah, the thing about spider mites is they are so small, and you might start noticing their damage long before you ever find them. And a lot of people say that you'll see webs on your plants. I haven't seen any spider mite webs at all, but I have a digital microscope. It's in my Amazon storefront. It was only like $30, but I was able to like look really closely at these. They look like moving specks of dust, but I was able to look very closely and identify them as spider mites. And the thing about spider mites is they can lay up to 20 eggs per day. It only takes about 3 days for their eggs to hatch. It takes 5 days for them to turn into adults, and they just lay more eggs, and the cycle continues. So you can have hundreds within a week. Like, it's insane. They're definitely the worst pest that I've dealt with so far. Like a few weeks ago, well, probably 2 months ago, I threw away almost every single plant in my apartment. I only kept like 3 decorative plants, and let my apartment sit empty for about 3 or 4 weeks before starting over. I mean, the thing is that a lot of my plants, I grow them from seed. Like, mainly I only have food plants, and I grow them all from seed. So throwing them away if I have to is not a big deal. And the thing also about treating your plants for spider mites, because their eggs hatch every 3 days, you have to spray something every 3 days. And the worst thing about them is they can build up resistance to whatever treatment method you're using. So you have to rotate through different sprays. So I spent like $200 on different sprays and still couldn't get rid of them. It's not fun at all. The microscope is really cool, actually. I wish I would have got one sooner. I saw a video where someone was using one, so I went and looked on Amazon right away, and I was like, oh, they don't cost that much. And the one that I have, the camera quality also isn't that bad, especially considering it was like $35. It's pretty good. See-through tracks, not holes in the leaf. For the spider mite damage, so one way that I check my plants for spider mite damage is if you hold the plant up to a light source, or even like the flashlight on your phone, you can put it underneath the leaves, and you'll see like they look like pinholes, but they're not holes, but they're just like really tiny dots where they've chewed on the leaves, but that's a telltale sign of spider mites. And also, what I didn't realize for the longest time is that my plant leaves were just dropping off of the plants. Like, it was basically there were so many leaves just dropping off. I could shake the plant and so many leaves would drop off, and I did not even realize at the time that it was spider mites because I couldn't see them. When I finally saw them back in November, I was looking at this big hydroponic system. It was like as tall as me, and I saw a little moving dot on there. And then I looked closer and I saw hundreds of whatever these bugs were, which I now know are spider mites. But yeah, it's just by the time you finally notice them, you probably have a lot. And I'm starting to wonder if honestly they're coming from somewhere in this apartment, like if they're coming through the baseboards, or I don't know, it just seems so weird for me to even throw away almost every single plant and start over weeks later and then just recently find spider mites again on a hydroponic system out of nowhere. Like, it seems weird. So I ended up putting diatomaceous earth underneath all of the baseboards in my apartment. Hopefully that'll help. But yeah, so mainly I do indoor stuff, but I also have an apartment balcony. So at my last apartment, and I've posted content on my balcony a little bit. At my last apartment, the balcony was south facing, so I received full sun. It was great. I could grow like anything out there, and I had so many plants out on that balcony. But this apartment is north facing, which has the absolute worst sunlight ever. It was, oh hi, Salty Acres. This is my first time on live. So this apartment balcony, when I first moved here, I was like so disappointed that the sunlight did not even touch my balcony at all. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Because it kind of affects what plants I can grow out there. But as the days have gotten longer, just this recently, I've started getting sunlight in the evening. And I was so excited when I first saw the sun shining on my balcony. So right now I get like 2 to 3 hours of sunlight in the evening, but I'm hoping that as I get more into summer, I'll get more sunlight. But I can show you guys what's going on the balcony right now. I have this rotates, which is kind of cool, but that's just lettuce. And here I have some cilantro, thyme, chives. This is collard greens, which I think will get really big if I allow it to. In here I have a lot of different things. So I've got some arugula. This might be like a red oak leaf lettuce, wasabi mustard, green onions, red Russian kale. This is, I can't remember what this is called. This is lemon cilantro, which I really like, but it also, it bolts really fast, which means it goes to seed kind of quick. This is just some sort of lettuce. We have the green stalk planter, and you can put a lot of plants in the green stalk planter. So I pretty much have shade tolerant stuff in here, but with the exception of the peas. So I'm actually kind of experimenting with this to see if it will flower. It's looking like it might actually flower just because there's not very much sun, but this is a flower developing. But I mean, in here I just have like kale, tatsoi. This is actually broccoli, and this does spin, but I currently have it attached to the fence. I do have some chamomile that is blooming, which is pretty cool. This is stevia, not doing very good. I don't think this is frost tolerant. Lemon balm, but yeah, that's the outdoor situation. And then I also have, well, this table needs to go back inside, but I have this little storage bin that I got from Amazon like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I just keep some stuff in here. I've got a little soil, trays, just some random stuff. Back inside. I really like the lemon cilantro. So I got that from Baker Creek. But like I said, I feel like it doesn't last very long compared to my other regular cilantro, which I guess would be called long-standing slow bolt. So maybe that's why, but I do like the lemon cilantro. I mean, it doesn't really taste that lemony, but I like it. It also, the stems of it are kind of purplish, which is really pretty. Oh, hey. So one of my best friends is in the live, and I just hope she doesn't embarrass me. Don't say anything embarrassing. Okay, so I have a second tomato plant that I need to transfer. Well, actually, you know what? I do have a cucumber plant that I need to transfer. I'm going to put it on a trellis like this, so maybe I should do that one next. Because I need to also attach it to the pot, but I'm actually going to have to drill some holes to do that. I just want to make sure it's not one of the pots, because I have a second pot that already has holes drilled into it, and I don't want to use that. Okay. But the reason why I attach the trellises to the pots is because they're just going to move around, especially in the leca. If I were filling this with soil, then it would be fine, but yeah, this will have to be attached. But I think I got this at Hobby Lobby for like, it was 40% off, so it was probably like $3 or maybe $3. All right, so I just need to figure out where I want to drill the hole. I'm not going to mark it or anything, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I think just one hole right here will be fine. It's almost halfway down, so it shouldn't be too difficult. There. Okay. No, I could not imagine you using a drill. I put the hole a little bit too low, but it'll be okay. This. Hello from NZ. Is that New Zealand? Hi. Just having a little bit of issues right now. Okay. I don't know how sturdy this is going to be, but it'll be better than nothing. I think when I tape it down, it'll be a little bit better. But do you guys have any indoor gardening questions? Do you have questions about what types of things you can grow indoors? I mean, you can kind of grow anything indoors if you give it the right conditions. But like I said, this is my first time going live. I don't know when I'll go live again, but so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That just ripped out, so now I need to fish it through again. So I just showed you guys my apartment balcony, but if you guys are doing small space gardening outside, I showed you my green stock planter. I think that is actually a really good small space solution. Mine holds at least 36 plants. I have another right now I only have 5 tiers on there, but it actually has 6 tiers, the one that I have. And I'm just not using the top one at all. I don't think I'm gonna use it because it kind of ruins my view, actually. It's just too tall, and I have a nice view from my apartment, and it kind of affects the view, so I'm just not using it. But green stock planters are a really good small space solution. if you're just getting started and you're trying to set up a little garden on a budget, Dollar Tree has stackable planters that they usually put out every gardening season each year. And I mean, those are a fine alternative. They're not as good of quality. The color does fade from the sun over time, but I've used them before. You also can't grow as many things, but I mean, just for greens, herbs. I've seen a lot of people do like strawberries and stuff in those. They're all right. So this, I don't know about this. Maybe once I have leca in here, it'll be more sturdy, but this isn't really holding very well. Ideally, I would put another hole in here, but I don't really have a second spot to attach it to. But let me get the cucumber plant. So this is called Dar Cucumbers. They produce vines that only get about 18 inches tall, so good little option for indoor gardening. You don't want anything too big when you're growing indoors. But I don't think you can see from that angle. There's a lot of flowers on here. I'm just going to put this in the white pot now so it's not as tippy. Okay, so cucumbers, they're an example of plants that have both male and female flowers. The way that you can tell the difference is the female flowers will have like a mini cucumber attached to them, but the male flowers are just going to be straight up just a flower. So like right here you can see there's like a little cucumber there. So what you have to do to pollinate these ones is you have to take pollen from the male flower and then transfer it to the center of the female flower. You can either use like a small brush or Q-tip to like first rub it around inside the male flower and then put it on the female flower, or you can just take the male flower off, like break it off and then kind of like move it around in there. I do both ways, but I have not pollinated this yet because it's still really small. I don't really want it producing cucumbers yet because I mean, the cucumbers get like, I don't think this can really hold cucumbers yet. It's just too small. So anyways, me and Brittany are watching from the car. Uh-oh. But just for a minute. Kyle, do you have any indoor gardening questions? Okay, so first I'm going to pour some leca into the pot. Hopefully, I mean, that'll help stabilize this trellis a little. Yeah, this is helping it not move around as much for sure. Okay, so this one has a lot of roots, so I'm for sure going to damage the roots while taking this out of here, which is totally fine. Plants can usually handle a little root damage. Yeah, this for sure needs something. So I mean, I can either rip them like this or cut them. Once they're loosened up, I should be able to just pull it out of here. I think what I want to do is I'm also going to rip off some of the little leaves and some of the flowers because I really just don't need all of this, especially the flowers that are so close to the bottom. I don't really want cucumbers down there. This does not seem like it's going to come out very easily, Okay, got it. If it's hydroponic, why repot? So leca actually isn't, this, what I'm doing right now isn't considered hydroponic. This is considered semi-hydroponics, but I'm repotting it because, I mean, the roots just need more room to grow. That looks scary. I do have some plants that I grow using the Kratky method, which actually I can show you. So that's when you use like the net cup and you have it suspended over nutrient water. And when you're growing things like this, you're able to actually trim the roots easily. But in here, this is more comparable to just like growing in soil. So I mean, when it outgrows the pot, you have to up pot it. Some of these though, I could trim the roots, but I mean, this plant definitely needed a bigger pot. And also I wanted to trellis it, and I can't put a trellis in the little pot that it was in. You do all this indoors? I do, yes. I grow lots of different types of foods indoors. Mystery of Kyle just got the #1 gifter. Oh, you know, I didn't even realize I was getting gifts. Well, thanks, Kyle. See, like I said, this is my first time going live, so I'm very unfamiliar with how things work. I'm here for you first. I didn't think you would still be in here. That's funny. Here to learn? Oh, well, in that case, I hope I see some pictures of you doing some indoor gardening then. For everyone who doesn't know, that's somebody that I actually know. I just want to jungle on my deck. I thought you did have plants on your deck. I guess it's still too cold where you are. You're probably actually still getting snow, but I feel like I didn't plant this deep enough, but it'll be okay. They die. Hi. Okay, so I got that in there pretty good. I do need to probably clip it to here, but I'll have to go get some clips. I can also use this, but I don't really like using this for attaching plants to trellises because you have to twist it on and it's not as clips you can just clip on and clip off really fast. But the thing that's cool about climbing plants is they have these little things which are called tendrils, and these will basically just grab onto trellises on their own and attach and kind of like stabilize themselves on here. You can also guide them like I'm doing now, but it's not going to stay. It'll kind of grab onto these on its own though. But so for this one, for plant food, I am going to use Arrow Garden since this is going to go through the flower and fruit stage. I also have another plant food that I use for my larger Kratky method plants. I have those ones in a 3.5 gallon bucket, but for those, because they use so much water, I use like a 3-part system. I can't remember what it's called, but is that squash and leca? Yes, these are Dar Cucumbers. So the vine only gets like 18 inches tall. So I'm trying this for the first time, but yeah, it should, I mean, hopefully fill out this trellis, but I think it'll be a really good option for indoors. I'm basically testing it so you guys don't have to, so I can give recommendations to people of things to grow indoors. If this works, how awesome. I know, yeah. I do have a second one of these plants that are growing in a half-gallon mason jar using the Kratky method. So I have like the little net cup on there and the roots are just in the water. And I actually have an air pump hooked up to that one. So that one, it has a lot of roots, but it doesn't really have much more growth. It doesn't really look better than this one. So I don't know. So I gave you guys a balcony garden tour. Do you want an indoor garden tour? I have a room that has some different food plants in there. Currently all the lights are turned off because last night I sprayed. So in that room I had that little table that was on my balcony that had a hydroponic system on it, and I found spider mites on the hydroponic system like 2 nights ago. So I sprayed all the other plants with Azamax as a preventative. I didn't see any spider mites on the other plants, but anyways, I sprayed all of those last night with Azamax. And that is similar to neem oil. It makes your plants really sensitive to light for, I'm not sure how long, but so I still have all the lights off. But if you guys want to see the room, I can turn the lights back on. Where can we find all the products you have on your videos? A lot of the products I have are in my Amazon storefront. So a lot of the supplies that I use for like leca and some of the pots and stuff, they're gonna be in there. Also, the plant food is in my Amazon storefront. That little squiggly trellis that I just used, that was from Hobby Lobby. But yeah, I get things from different places, but I feel like I get a lot of stuff from Amazon. Oh. The live detected inactivity, so I had to move like a little puzzle piece to show that I'm active. I didn't know that I have to be touching the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna turn all the lights on in the plant room first, and then I will show you guys what type of plants I have growing indoors for food plants. This is probably my oldest indoor garden setup. It all started with just like the garment rack. Like 5 years ago, I hung a panel grow light from it, and I just had plants on the floor under that, and it's kind of evolved over the years. About 4 years ago, I added the cabinet to it. But I also have the wall garden behind there. And so the grow lights, when they're being recorded, they like flash like that. So you'll probably notice that. But this is another one of those cucumber plants. This is climbing on a twig trellis, which is kind of cool. This is what I'm also using outside for the pea plants, but these are stackable, so I can add more as it grows. This right here is a jewel amethyst eggplant. So it produces eggplants that are only like about this big. And this is one that like so it's self-pollinating, which doesn't necessarily mean that it pollinates itself. Like that just means that it has both male and female flowers. But I've tried pollinating this with like a brush, and it kind of seems like I don't even need to pollinate this. So I don't know. These are Tom Thumb peas, looking really bad. I actually did a video on these, and they just aren't looking good. Yeah. So everything does not grow well using the Kratky method. So I did have some of these in a hydroponic system, and they turned out way better. But yeah, this isn't looking good. This is pink Mizuna. I think that's called Epizote. The wall grid is one of my newer, actually no, I made this like 3 months ago, but I do really like this setup. It's got like the little leather straps. You just slide the mason jars in here. You can also do something similar with just pots if you prefer soil, but I like how versatile it is. This is red hibiscus, I believe. Right here would be the lemon drop watermelons. So I kind of need to figure out the lighting situation for this. Temporarily, I just have 2 individual lights there, which has been working, but this is going to produce yellow watermelons that are like, I don't know, like this, like really small, probably like this big. And over here, I think this is the last setup that I shared on my page, but this is just like my wall of greens. So we've got some lettuce. I think that's pink amaranth. It has really pretty pink stems. This is Merlot lettuce, tatsoi. This is, well, let me skip to this one. So this one is like a spinach mustard, and this one is a combination of the spinach mustard and the tatsoi. So it kind of looks like both of them. And then this, I think this is red Russian kale. This is dwarf Siberian kale. The kales are getting really big. Yeah, I just rearranged these last night. But this one is arugula. This is pink Mizuna, which is pretty crazy looking. Had a hydroponic system there, but removed it. This is like the easiest setup that you guys could make indoors. So this is just a wire rack setup, and I'm using lights from Harbor Freight, which are pretty affordable. So yeah, this is also like my cheapest and easiest setup that you can do. But up here, I think these are wasabi greens. This is some type of eggplant. It came from a hydroponic system. And then this one is collard greens that I plan on keeping indoors, but like I said, with the ones on the balcony, they get really big, so I don't know. And then I also have this chia pet that I need to use eventually. These pots are pretty cool. I used these for leca before, and they're pretty decent. This is what I use for seed starting. It's just a bucket of cocoa coir, and then I mix some of that stuff in there, but it's not really something that I swear by. I just already had the stuff, so I tried it, and it works fine. The thing about those is that it doesn't have any nutrients in it, so once your plant gets like the first set of true leaves, you do have to add nutrients. But yeah, that's just the different indoor setups. I really like having the trellises. There's a lot of different things you can do with trellises inside. You can either have your plants trail up them, or you can turn it into like a vertical garden like that. How do I remember all of this? How do I remember what kind of plants I have? Well, I grow pretty much all my plants from seed, so they're basically like my little babies, so I definitely remember them. How do you know when to add nutrients to plants? So all of my plants, since they're growing, all my indoor plants, since they're usually in hydroponics or semi-hydroponics, I always am adding nutrients when I add water. But if you mean like when something is in soil and needs to be fertilized, that kind of depends on the soil. So usually when you use like a new potting mix, it'll have plant food or fertilizer in it. And I think the bag should say how long that lasts for, which will usually be like 3 months. And then after that, you're supposed to start fertilizing, I believe, but don't quote me on that. I'm not positive about that. Show Gizmo again. I already left the room, but Gizmo is definitely cute. That was like the cutest chia pet that I could find. I don't think I've ever had a chia pet before, so. The cabinet from that cabinet actually is from Aldi. So it was like 2020. I saw it in their little Aldi, the weekly, I don't know what it is, but I went there before the store opened and had to wait in line outside in the rain just to get that cabinet. But I think it was like $60 or something. It was a pretty good deal because online, similar ones are like hundreds of dollars. My friend has an ivory one though. It's really cute. I like the green for a pop of color. I probably would have preferred the ivory, but I ended up getting the teal or green or whatever color it is. What is the easiest plant to keep alive indoors? I mean, do you mean like the decorative house plants or food plants? I mean, I don't really know much about house plants, but I used to have a snake plant that I would only water once like every 4 months. So that is the easiest plant that I've ever had. For food plants, I don't know. I feel like all of my food plants are kind of needy to an extent. But I don't know if that's also because of just like growing in water. They drink up the water pretty fast sometimes. I can't even go out of town for like 2 weeks or 2 days without coming home to a plant that is very droopy and mad at me. I always get moldy soil every time I get a plant indoors, even the seed starters. So moldy soil, I mean, any growing medium in general can get moldy if it's basically just too moist for too long and there's not a lot of airflow, or if there's a lot of organic matter. So one thing I don't like about organic mixes specifically is they do develop a lot of mold. I mean, I've read up on those, and some of the mold is like apparently beneficial mold, but a lot of times, I mean, it's just that there's not much airflow. So even on my click and grow gardens too, where they have like those little soil pods, those get moldy. So basically to prevent that, I just blow a fan on there. But hydroponic systems too, like the growing mediums, because hydroponic systems, the growing medium is always wet. So I've definitely had mold on those too, and it's kind of just blowing a fan on there. All have been organic. Yeah, every time I've used organic soil, I have gotten mold. I'm not really a fan of organic mixes. Well, I'm not really a fan of soil in general, so I'm not an expert on soil. I don't like using it. But I do have, so outside I am using an organic soil mix right now. My favorite soil brand is Pro Mix, and I couldn't find the one that I usually get. So I ended up getting their organic version. So I mean, it looks like the one that I used to use. I'm not really sure yet how moldy it will get, but I mean, it's outdoors, so I also don't really care. And outdoors, there's a lot of airflow, so I don't really think mold will be as much of an issue. I love your setup, super inspo. I love it. Nice job. Thank you. I definitely want to make a new indoor setup. I basically love doing DIY projects and coming up with new indoor setups. So I haven't thought of what my next setup is going to be. The thing that I struggle with doing that is I can't just be making all these DIY projects all the time because I will have to use them and I don't want it to get out of control. So I kind of have to have a need for it or a good place to put it. But I would love to like design indoor setups for other people and just go into people's houses and set up indoor gardens. I think that would be a lot of fun. Same with leca, hairy leca. I have had mold develop on leca before. It was where I was kind of like, I tried growing basil from seed directly in leca, and I put a plastic cup over the top, so there was a lot of moisture, and I did have mold when I did that. But how do you know when to repot an indoor plant? So with house plants, they kind of grow I think a lot of people that have the videos that I've seen, it seems like houseplants need repotted like not that often, probably once a year, but do not quote me on that. But you can kind of tell when the roots are protruding from the bottom drainage hole. You might start to see signs of the plant being root bound. So that'll be like the yellowing leaves, brown tips. Yeah, I mean, when it outgrows that. The thing about growing food though is that food plants grow kind of fast. So if you are putting them in a pot that's like appropriate for its size right now, it might outgrow that pot really fast. So I do kind of have to upsize my pots quite often when growing food. My green stock was a home for fungus gnats, so I had to separate them. Love it now even more. I did have a lot of fungus gnats in my green stock planter last summer. I think it's because of the soil I put in there. I tried adding like a compost to add nutrients back into the old soil, and it was just a bad idea. I ended up throwing away all of that and starting over. That's why I like Pro Mix, because it doesn't really attract, well, I can't say that. If the soil is moist for too long, you're probably going to get fungus gnats, especially outside where they're just out there. I am considering when I'm watering my outdoor plants this summer, just watering with mosquito bits as a preventative. How do you get rid of fungus gnats? So the first thing you're going to want to do is get something to catch the adult gnats, because they're the ones that are flying around and laying eggs everywhere. So yellow sticky traps are great. Also, you can get things that like plug into the wall, like Zevo flying insect trap. I have one of those. I also use the yellow sticky traps too. I get like really small ones. And sometimes I'll just, when I know which plant is affected, I'll just set it on the plant too, like on the edge of the pot, or you can just stick it in there too. But anyways, first you need a sticky trap because you have to get the adults under control. And then you need something to take care of in the soil. So I used to think that hydrogen peroxide, like dumping that in there would take care of the larvae and eggs, but I actually had a situation where I was growing something with the crack key method, but I was using like this little hydroponic sponge, and it was completely infested with fungus gnats and larvae. And I dumped hydrogen peroxide directly on there, and I watched it over like a 24-hour period and dumped it multiple times on there, and the larva was living. Like, it did not die from the hydrogen peroxide. So I no longer recommend that to people. But anything, basically something with the chemical BTI in it, which is safe for people and pets, by the way. But so that's going to be mosquito bits. That's pretty easy to find. Like, you can of course find it online, but even at your local hardware stores like Lowe's, Menards, Home Depot might have it. And then you can also get liquid BTI solutions. I do have one in my bio. It's called Fungus Gnat Death Drops. But I mean, I've seen other options on Amazon too. But you just mix the liquid one. The liquid one is really easy to use. You just mix like a little bit with water and water your plants with it. And the way that the BTI solution works on the larva is as they're moving around in the soil, feeding on your plant roots or other organic matter, they will basically get poisoned by it and eventually die. So that's usually the best solution for fungus gnats. But also, it's kind of a lengthy process to get rid of fungus gnats. So you will be treating your plants multiple times over, I don't know, a couple weeks or so. Also, after you water your plant with that solution, you should let the soil dry completely out, because when the soil is dry, the larvae can't even survive in those conditions. So, and you should also treat all of your plants too, just to be sure. I can never keep basil happy. So the one thing about basil is I think it needs a lot of, well, I was gonna say I think it needs a lot of light. I think basil likes the heat, for one thing. I mean, yeah, it needs bright light, because I was researching shade-tolerant plants for my balcony, and basil was not one of them. I mean, basil doesn't seem, it's been pretty easy when I've grown it. I do have to prune it quite often, and then when you prune it, it just starts growing even bushier. I think an issue a lot of people have is when they buy basil at the grocery store, they don't understand why they bring it home and it doesn't live for very long. And that's because the basil that you're buying, like at a grocery store, there are so many plants crammed into that tiny pot, so they don't live very long. Basically, the stores set you up for failure. They want the plant to die after not very long, so you'll keep buying them. But if you buy those and separate the individual plants out, you can keep it alive longer. A Mexican butterwort plant is fairly easy carnivorous plant to help with fungus gnats. I used to have a Venus flytrap, but I guess I didn't take very good care of it. So it's the store, not me. Yes, it is the store. But I too have learned from experience with buying herbs at the store and them not lasting long. I actually was getting interviewed by a magazine yesterday, and that was one of the things I was talking about. Like cilantro, I've had that not last very long after buying it. Okay, well, I'm about to get off of here because I'm gonna go run some errands. I'm gonna go to Target and I'm gonna go grocery shopping. But if you guys have any last minute questions, I can answer those for you. When is your next live? I don't know. I didn't finish all of my plant tasks that I wanted to do on live, but it's kind of getting late and I need to go to the store. So I don't know if I'll go live again when I finish all this repotting or what. We will see. Because I only found this scrolling after my nap. Well, I didn't really tell anybody that I was going live. I just kind of did it. Best beginner indoor plants. So I'm not sure if you're asking for house plants or food plants. So my area of focus is food plants. I don't really know much about house plants. But best plants to start out with if you are growing food, I think herbs are a good place to start, and then also greens like lettuce, arugula, kale. I have a small snake plant I bought a year ago, and she hasn't grown much. She's inside with light. I wonder, do you know if it needs a larger pot? Like, did you check the bottom to see if the roots are coming out? It could need a larger pot. It might need some nutrients added into the soil. But again, I'm not a houseplant expert. So I used to have a snake plant, and I would neglect it like crazy. I would water it once every 3 or 4 months. And I mean, it was fine. I loved that plant. But then it got infested with fungus gnats, and it was right before I moved, and also when I moved, I did try to bring it here, but it was in my sister's vehicle, and when she opened the door, it fell out, and the pot shattered, and I was just like, it can just all go in the trash. Okay, guys, well, I'm going to get off of here. Thank you for your questions, and maybe I will be live again soon.